Hello students, and welcome to the CompTIA A+ 1202 exam course brought to you by Third Level Technology. I am your instructor, Jim Herbie. In this episode, we're going to continue in Module 1 in the exam objectives. We're going to discuss Section 1.3. Our topic is Microsoft Windows. Let's begin. In this episode, we're going to discuss the different editions of Microsoft Windows 10 and 11, as well as some of the common differences you see between each edition. You want to understand the difference between a version and an edition. A version is a completely different operating system itself. In Windows, we have, going backwards, we have Windows 11, 10, 8, 7, XP, and older. Within each version, you will have different editions. Each edition will be a different format of that specific operating system that is offered to different audiences and customers. Our discussions are going to focus on Windows 10 and 11, and we will point out where there is differences between each Windows version. Our first edition of Windows 10 and 11 is Windows Home. Windows Home is the operating system that you will have on your residential computers, both desktops and laptops. Windows Home includes voice activation features called Cortana. Cortana is your digital assistant that allows you to verbally interact with your operating system and different services and applications. Windows Home has the ability to enable biometric authentication. When you log on to your computer, you will use a standard username and password. And as you start to do online activity, you will have a Microsoft Office account. But for basic security on your own device, Windows Home has a feature called Hello. Windows Hello is the biometric authentication that you can set up on Windows Home 10 and 11. Typically, this will be a fingerprint or a facial recognition scan through your webcam. Windows Home does not have domain support, the infrastructure you use for an operating system in a business environment. The second type of Windows edition is Windows Pro. Windows Pro is the operating system for 10 and 11 that we use for small businesses and administrative level users. Many of your administrative level users, these will be your IT professionals that work on a freelance basis with different customers. So they use Windows Pro as their operating system because most of your small businesses use it as well. Windows Pro begins to introduce what's called domain support. This is where we can manage multiple user accounts and all of their authentication and network access from one controller. The most common type of domain service is Active Directory. This is a utility we use to add and delete user accounts, create passwords for them, as well as manage their network access. Windows Pro has a feature called Group Policy. Group Policy allows us to create configurations that can be applied to a group of users. Windows Pro also introduces BitLocker. BitLocker is the encryption tool used in Microsoft Windows for all of its enterprise operating systems. Windows Pro also introduces Remote Desktop, RDP. The Remote Desktop protocol is one we use very commonly in our IT troubleshooting to allow us to connect to a remote user's device to help in resolving problems. The third edition of Windows is Windows Pro for Workstations. Windows Pro will include all of the features of the standard Windows Pro edition, but will also include some more advanced hardware because it is going to be specific to high computing tasks. We use workstations for things like server management. If you work in an IT environment where you will be in charge of managing any of your data servers, you will use Windows Pro for Workstations. Another aspect of Windows Pro for Workstations is any type of high-end graphics. If you're doing any type of video or streaming, Windows Pro Workstations is very popular as well. Workstations also has the ability to support up to 6 terabytes of RAM. Large increase in the amount of memory that's available because we need the extra performance for some of the tasks we're doing. And the fourth edition is Windows Enterprise. Windows Enterprise is the edition we use for our large business networks. Windows Enterprise will have all of the features in Windows Pro. So things like Remote Desktop Protocol, BitLocker, those will be included in Windows Enterprise. Introduces the ability to filter based on application layer. The application layer is where we can now control what types of applications can run within our operating system environment. We have a feature called Windows Defender. Windows Defender is a firewall utility that we use in Windows 10 and 11, especially in our enterprise networks, to help us create firewall rules to block or allow specific types of application or network traffic. So we talked about the 4 different editions: Windows Home, Windows Pro, Workstations, and Windows Enterprise. And now we're going to discuss some other common features related to some of these different editions, and we'll point out where there are similarities and differences. First, we're going to discuss workgroups. We mentioned in Windows Home, we do not have the ability to connect our OS to a domain. Workgroups is the way that we can connect Windows Home devices to each other. If you are working in a very small local area network, a workgroup is still an effective way to communicate between your local users. You don't really have a need for things like routers or switches because you may only have 2, 3, or 4 users working on the same network. With workgroups, we use peer-to-peer networking. This is where all of the users on our local network will have the same privileges and access rights. We don't have any centralized management for our domains, so all of our user credentials will be created by each user native to their device. When we are working in a business environment, we are using domain access. Domain access is when we use centralized servers to manage some aspect of our network. One common type of server is a AAA server. And this is where we can control how our users authenticate their identities, usernames, passwords, biometrics. We can enable single sign-on. This is where a user can authenticate to the network once and then gain access to all of our resources because we have trust between the different apps running on our network. Domain access will typically use Active Directory. This is the standard directory service we use to create and manage our user accounts, group policies, and many other administrative tasks in a Windows 10 and 11 environment. Next, we're going to discuss desktop styles. A desktop style is going to be how is the screen, your monitor display, going to be viewed by the user. We can use things like screensavers. These are going to be images that appear when our computer is in hibernation mode. We also can create background images for our standard desktop. Desktop styles come in both light and dark modes. This allows us to have different color contrasts that we can use depending on our preferences. Desktop styles also will include our virtual desktops. Windows 10 and 11 both enable virtualization for the users, so we can also create different desktop styles for all of our virtual machines. So we can configure the settings for our Windows environment, as well as our virtual machines running Linux, Mac OS, Android, or any other operating system on our device. Next, we have RDP, the Remote Desktop Protocol. RDP is a protocol we use to allow us to remotely connect to another user's computer. As an IT technician, many times your troubleshooting will be done using RDP. RDP is accessible in all editions except for Windows Home. So any Windows operating system that has domain access will have RDP enabled. We can use RDP across multiple monitors. This is very helpful if you are working with multiple users at the same time. RDP is cross-platform. Originally created for Windows, It also now can work with all of the iOS operating systems, Mac OS, Linux, and Android. We also want to discuss the different RAM capacities of all of the different Windows editions. Windows Home supports RAM up to 128 gigabytes. So Windows 10 Home is going to be strictly a gigabit level operating system. Windows Pro and Enterprise both allow us to store RAM memory up to 2 terabytes of data. So you can see we increase our capacity by a factor of almost 20. We have the ability to upgrade memory in all of the different Windows editions, but your upgrade potential is going to be limited by the resources on your device. Next we have BitLocker. BitLocker is a standard encryption feature in all of your Windows Pro and Enterprise editions. It allows us to encrypt all of our stored data at a full disk level. That will conclude our discussion of Section 1.3 Microsoft Windows. In our next episode, we will move on to Section 1.4 in the objectives and discuss Windows Tools. We thank you again for following along in the episodes in the course and wish you best of luck in your studies. Enjoy the rest of your day.